right, we'll take a live look right now. Merrick Garland, the nominee to be the next Attorney General, in a live hearing right now. Just a few moments ago, we saw Senator Cory Booker questioning Garland. Here is Senator Dick Durbin, another member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, questioning Garland. Garland expected to have a pretty easy confirmation process, not the same situation for Neera Tanden, the White House nominee to be the Director of Management and Budget. We'll talk about all that and much more coming out. But we start in Texas, where temperatures are finally returning to normal, but there is, of course, still a very long road to recovery. 195,000 homes without power this weekend, 160 counties with water disruptions, a lot of people under a boil water notice. A lot of people have died as well, and a long road to recovery. We just heard from Senator Chuck Schumer there, slamming Texas for getting caught off guard by last week's winter storm, saying the Lone Star State is paying a price for going it alone and ignoring climate change. Here is Senator Schumer again.
The bottom line is Texas thought it could go at it alone and built a system that ignored climate change. It was not what's called resilient. And now Texas is paying the price. I hope they learn the lesson.
All right, let's welcome in Congressman Gohmert now to talk more about this. Chuck Schumer says you guys got to learn some lessons. I don't think you have the same lessons in mind, do you, Congressman?
Well, not exactly. Bless his heart. You know, he's doing the best he can with what little information he has. But the fact is that Texas's big problem was they were using resources to move toward solar and wind and did not weatherize their plants. 10 years ago, the Texas was told in a report, you've got to weatherize your plant. But the emphasis was getting kudos from people like Schumer and having more and more intermittent type, well, we also know it as wind and solar, but intermittent types of power. They're not constant. And you have to have twice as many transmission lines. But instead of winterizing the plants, as Texas was told to do, our chairman of the board of ERCOT in Michigan and vice chairman of our ERCOT board in California apparently didn't realize just how important that was. ERCOT doesn't produce a watt of energy.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because it's a unique system that most people are used to. And I'm a little surprised to hear you talk about the ERCOT board member in Michigan and in California. Most people would assume that the people making the decision for Texans are actually in the state of Texas. You're telling me that's not the case?
I can guarantee you the people in my district, most of Texas, had no idea that we'd allowed people from other states. I mean, you got competent people in every state. But if I were in Michigan, I would not want a Texan dictating our energy plans for Michigan. But that's, it was quite a surprise to all of us, I can promise you.
Because that was kind of the whole point of the ERCOT system, right? That Texas produces enough energy and they could be autonomous when it comes to how they regulate and manage their electricity. And this seems like that would completely defeat that purpose.
Yeah, and there have been many that saw the benefit of having a separate grid in other parts of the country too, because, you know, we are able to produce so much energy here. But we didn't weatherize the plants, and we did not have our valves weatherized where we needed resources. Natural gas valves had frozen, they had been shut in, and then they were not able to produce. So when we needed them, but no natural gas plant shut down. If we had had the 3 coal plants that have been shut down in recent years, then that would have added to make sure that we had plenty of energy. But they have been shut down to try to continue to make Schumer happy. And instead, it left us as a state that was not really prepared for this kind of weather. And we set records of all kinds every day. It was amazing. Our frost line went deeper than anybody was used to, and that meant more frozen pipes, more burst water mains. And so that's going to take time to get all that fixed.
Yeah, you know, these houses in Texas aren't built for that kind of cold. Right. And, you know, when you look at the power bills, too, what's going to be done for these poor folks about these power bills? It seems like they're getting a raw deal here because they weren't able to get the power, and what little power they were able to get because of the law on supply and demand and the way things work down there, some of them are paying $7,000 for their power bill.
Yeah. I'd seen that, and that's just wrong. And you're right. We've got to do something about it. Nobody should have to pay those kind of power bills. That's ridiculous. So those are things that are going to have to be addressed. And unfortunately, some of the federal guidelines, they don't allow for payment of or subsidies for energy bills in Texas. So it's something that we're going to have to deal with here.
Yeah, you know, in the $1.9 trillion COVID relief package, there's a lot of money that's earmarked to go to foreign COVID relief efforts. There's $50 billion going to the state of New York to help bail them out. You would hope that there would maybe be some opportunity to help out these poor folks in Texas who, through no fault of their own, are getting hosed on these electric bills. I also want to talk about Senator Ted Cruz because, you know, he's gotten a lot of criticism for his trip to Mexico. He was on Newsmax, to his credit, this weekend to explain what happened. Here he is.
My plan had been to work remotely, as I've been doing, as we've all been doing for a long time in the age of COVID. But I got to tell you, even as I started flying out, I started having second thoughts about leaving, just because Texas is in crisis right now. A lot of Texans are hurting, and I think it's important for me to be here physically. And so I ended up changing my flight and coming back the next day. I'm back in Texas now, and focusing really on the issues I was focused on before leaving briefly for that trip.
So, you know, Ted Cruz back in the Senate hearing, which is on recess right now, is also seen handing out food and water, some barbecue I saw over the weekend. And this is, you know, what you'd expect people to do. But, Congress, I wanted to focus the conversation on you and what you have been doing for your constituents since this all happened.
Well, for one thing, you get all over your district, you find out what people need, and then you make calls. We have a great emergency system in Austin, and they are very responsive when I've called and when we seek to get things that our district needs. And so, you know, it's been very Texas focused for a couple of weeks now. And so I've missed some of the national news, you know, just being right here in East Texas. But
you haven't missed too much, because there's not a lot going on in Washington, quite frankly. I mean, I know you got your ear to the ground on that stuff, but with the exception of that, you know, spectacular engine issue that we had over the weekend, it's been the same thing. It's been impeachment, impeachment, impeachment again in reverse, and talking about President Trump and relitigating all that stuff from the past. But I think part of that is intentional, because Democrats want our attention elsewhere from this $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. The Biden White House says it's very popular with Americans. But again, we see, you know, several cases where this money really isn't designed to go to COVID relief.
No, and some of it, like for schools, won't be spent until after this year. So it doesn't make a lot of sense. And you're exactly right. When they're making noise about one thing in Washington, the Democrats, that is, you can be sure they're trying to slide something else through. We're going to be, as I'm told, taking up the Equality Act that is anything but about equality. It does massive damage to women's sport, undoes so much of the good that we've done in equalization of rights and scholarships, all these kind of things. And now with women's rights movement that has made so much gains, as it should have, it's taken a back seat, and transgenderism is going to, as we had testimony in one of our hearings in the last Congress, it's going to be quite powerful in maybe ending the majority role women have in women's sports. It's just tragic what they're trying to slide through.
You think about the scholarship opportunities for women in sports now in college. That'll go away. All the, you know, you can talk about too. You can talk about statistics where young women that play sports and they're much lower pregnancy rates while they're teenagers. These are all proven facts, and it's unclear to a lot of us why Democrats would want to go down this road.
You know, it's apparently it's where a lot of their money came from in order to help them win the last election. And so they've got to play to their money sources. And so that's what we're seeing.
Follow the money. That's unfortunately the game with politics too often. And you don't like where it leads. Congressman Gohmert, we'll see you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Really good to be with you as always.
And we hope your constituents are recovering as well as they possibly can down there in Texas.